Usborne Young reading The 12 Dancing Princesses, based on the story by the Brothers Grimm, illustrated by Anna Lurashi. Family Trouble. There were once 12 beautiful princesses, all with long flowing hair and short, fiery tempers. Their father, the king, was a grumpy old man who didn't believe in having fun. "All of you just sit down and look pretty," he said to the 12 princesses, his daughters. In fact, he believed that princesses should be seen and not heard. The ballroom door was blocked with 2 wooden planks, just as doors in Goa are blocked by arambes.
Arambos, metal plates.
Yes, and on the ballroom door in bold was written, "No entry." The princesses strongly disagreed. The thing they argued about most was dancing. Their father hated it, but the princesses loved it. So, whenever he wasn't looking, they danced away. The sisters' secret. The girls slept in a tall tower with their beds side by side. Every night the king locked the tower door so that they couldn't sneak out. "Sleep well, my dears," said the king. One morning, when the door was unlocked, the princesses were still asleep. As the maid went to wake them, she noticed their shoes were lying in a soggy pile on the floor. "How strange," said the maid. The shoes were worn out. When the king heard about the shoes, he was furious. "Those girls have been out dancing," he spluttered. "Bring my daughters here now," shouted the king.
Yes, sir.
"Yes, sire," the maid replied. "Princesses should not be out dancing all night," he yelled at them. "You need your beauty sleep. You should all be ashamed of yourselves." The 12 girls weren't ashamed in the least. What's more, they wouldn't tell him how they had escaped or where they had been. The next morning, it was clear that the princesses had been out again. The same thing happened
7 nights in a row.
7 nights in a row. The king didn't know what to do. Then he had a brilliant idea. He decided that the first man to discover where his daughters went each night could marry one of them. Posters went up across the land.
Fed up with your job? Feel like a challenge? Solve a royal mystery and win big prize. Win your own kingdom and marry a genuine princess. Interested? Drop in to the castle for further details. No time wasters, please.
And so read the posters that went up across the land. Taking the challenge. The first man to take up the king's challenge was brave Prince Marcus. "By the way, there is one small catch," the king told him. "If you fail, I'll
Cut off your head.
cut off your head."
Okay, no problem, Your Majesty.
said Prince Marcus. That night, Prince Marcus was taken to the tower and put in a room next to the princesses,
Very comfortable indeed.
said Prince Marcus. They made him very welcome. One even brought him a cup of hot, milky cocoa. As Prince Marcus drank the cocoa, he began to feel sleepy. He tried splashing cold water on his face, but that didn't work. Soon he was fast asleep and snoring loudly. Next morning, the princess's shoes were worn out again. Prince Marcus had failed, and the king wasn't joking about chopping off his head. Many more princes and noble knights came forward, but they were all fooled by the princess's sweet smiles. "Enjoy your drink," said the princesses to each prince and their offer of hot cocoa. Ralph and Rascal. One day, a magician named Ralph and his pet dog Rascal were passing the castle. Ralph noticed one of the king's posters and decided to find out more. "This could be interesting, Rascal," Ralph said to his pet dog. When he saw Ralph, the king looked doubtful, but he was desperate to know what the girls were up to, so he agreed to let Ralph try. "I'll chop off your head if you fail, you know,"
Yes, but I won't fail,
said Ralph. Night came, and Ralph was put in the same room where the other princes had stayed. "Hello, I'm Amy," said the youngest. "He's nice," she whispered to her sisters. "I don't want him to die because of us. Maybe we shouldn't go out tonight." Her sisters ignored her. A few minutes later, Annabel, the eldest sister, brought Ralph a cup of cocoa. But Ralph was a wise magician. He knew what she was up to. "This is for you," said Annabel.
It will take more than that to fool me,
thought Ralph the magician. He pretended to drink the cocoa. Then, when Annabel wasn't looking, he poured it into Rascal's bowl. Rascal, his pet dog, was delighted. "Chocolate milk!" He slurped the chocolate milk. Ralph yawned. "I think I'll just put my feet up for a few minutes," he told Annabel. Then, with an even bigger yawn, he pretended to fall asleep. Annabel crept back to her sisters. "He's asleep," she whispered. "Let's get ready." They put on their sparkliest ball dresses and new shoes. The princesses shimmered like a rainbow. With the last button buttoned and the last bow tied, the girls stood by their beds. Annabel pulled back a dusty old rug in the corner of the room to reveal a secret trapdoor in the floor. The hinges creaked as she pulled it open. One by one, the girls disappeared down some steps and into a long, dark tunnel. Ralph on the trail. When the princesses were out of sight, Ralph quickly entered the room. He clicked his fingers and a cloak appeared. With a second click, Ralph vanished. Carefully, he tiptoed down the steps into the tunnel. It didn't take long for him to catch up with the princesses. Ralph tried to walk quietly, but it wasn't easy. At one point, he stepped on Amy's dress. She jumped and turned around, but there was no one there. A few moments later, Ralph stepped on a twig. Now, Amy, the youngest little sister, was convinced that someone was following them. Her sisters didn't believe her. "What was that?" "You're just hearing things, silly." At the end of the tunnel, they came to an astonishing row of trees. Some of the trees glistened with silver, some with gold, and some with sparkling diamonds. Ralph had never seen trees like them. While the princesses carried on, he gently broke off a twig from each tree. Up ahead, the princesses had stopped before a lake. It stood in the shadow of a beautiful castle. 12 boats were waiting at the edge of the lake, and in each boat sat a
handsome prince.
Each prince rode a princess across the lake. Ralph sneaked into the boat, carrying Amy. When they reached the other side, a band began to play. The princesses danced until their feet were sore and the soles of their shoes were worn through. As the sun rose, they limped home. "Our nights of dancing are still safe, unlike poor Ralph's head," said Annabel, yawning. Amy looked upset. A shock for the king. The king was having breakfast when Ralph strolled in.
"Good morning, Your Majesty,"
said Ralph brightly. "I suppose you've come to tell me you failed too," sighed the king.
But I didn't, sir."
But I didn't, sire," Ralph replied, waving the twigs. He told the king what he'd seen.
"The mystery is solved."
"This all sounds very unlikely," grumbled the king when Ralph had finished. "Are you sure you're not just making it up to save your head?" He decided to call for Annabel. When she saw the 3 twigs in his hand, she looked horrified. One look at her face told the king all he needed to know. "Dancing is banned," he declared. The princesses sobbed and wailed when they heard their secret had been discovered. "What will we do?" they cried. Life is so dull without dancing. This is the worst day of my life. But there was nothing they could do. True to his word, the king let Ralph marry one of his daughters. I'd like Amy, Ralph said, if she'll have me. She's the sweetest of all. Amy was the youngest princess, the youngest of the 12 princesses, the youngest in the dozen. I'm sure you'll both be very happy, beamed the king. Amy and Ralph's wedding was a joyful occasion. Even the king couldn't stop smiling. I have a surprise for you, he whispered to Amy. What do you think the surprise could be?
They were allowed to dance.
Okay, the king would allow them to dance. Danu, what do you think the surprise the king had for his daughter Amy on her wedding day could be?
To dance.
To dance? Okay. Let's find out. When in doubt,
We need to find out.
the king led her to the ballroom and Amy gasped. Hundreds of candles lit up the dance floor, and in the corner, a band was playing a lively tune. Oh, how wonderful! Cried Amy and her sisters. As it's a special occasion, you may all dance, but for one night only, said the king. Oh, how wonderful! Cried Amy and her sisters, grabbing partners. They were all still dancing the following night. I thought I said one night only, said the king, but he smiled. And the dancing continued, for Ralph had worked some more of his magic. The end. The 12 Dancing Princesses was first written down by two brothers, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm. They lived in Germany in the early 1800s, and together they retold hundreds of fairy tales. This version has been retold by Emma Hellbrow. This story is dedicated to David Dessau, a creative constructor and creator of Lego things, just like his brother Daniel Dessau, who builds churches. By his mama and papa,
Rizal and Sergio Dessau.